Hello. So this is going to be a little bit different from any of the previous rankings that I've done. I'm presenting this on my own, but the rankings for these bosses were done with the help of two friends of mine. They're going to be ranked sort of in the same way, tier by tier, but I'll be going through them one tier at a time in order still, and sort of talking about how we came to the conclusion of why this boss is in this particular position. Still the same categories that we're looking at it. Mechanics, design, music, lore, etc., etc. If you want more information on how these rankings work first, I would advise watching my previous Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 ranking before watching this one. But let's start with the bottom of the pile in the D tier. So, Lud and Zarlan are the worst boss in the game. They're the worst boss, and that was the easiest decision that we came to. The run-up is horrible. It's like the second worst run-up in the game, in my opinion. It's a copy of an already not great boss. It's just absolutely awful, and I hate it. Next is the Gank Squad at the end of the Cave of the Dead in the Sunken King DLC. Again, the run-up's horrible, and it's really uninteresting and lazy just putting 3 NPCs there, and I'm convinced at least 2 of them were used for the Dark Chasms of Old areas. It might have been all 3, but I don't remember, which makes them extra lazy and extra horrible. So these belong here. They're disgustingly bad. The next boss is the Belfry Gargoyles, and they're at the bottom for like a very specific reason, and that's just how lazy they are. It's literally the same boss as Dark Souls 1, like it's the same theme song, pretty much the same design, just ported over into Dark Souls 2, in a worse arena, and they just made more of them instead of making the fight more challenging or interesting. The only thing cool about them is getting to see them fly around in that brief section before the Lost Sinner. Apart from that, though, it's nothing positive to say about them, really. The Ancient Dragon is a bit higher, since he's a fight that's unique to Dark Souls 2, but he's just so boring. He has a very, very limited moveset given the importance that he has, like, story-wise. You'd think that he would be, even though he's an optional boss, you'd think they'd put a bit more thought into how he works. And his health pool is just way too big. It doesn't make the fight, like, difficult. It just makes it, like, drag on way too long. It's just not interesting. The Prowling Mages and Congregation are literally just some normal enemies in a room. Yeah, they're just some normal-ass enemies you'll find, and positive the ones on the floor at least, you just find in the world all the time. And they just put a boss bar under, like, boss health bar under them. Like, come on. The Skeleton Lords are kind of the same, but they're a bit more unique. They are skeletons for one, so they instantly look cooler. But the thing I dislike about them is they are a bad gank fight. That's the main thing. But the boss is against the Skeleton Lords. But the normal skeletons that are just running about count towards the health bar, like the minions. So it should be the Skeleton Lords and blank. Because if you kill the 3 Skeleton Lords, that should be the end of the fight, but it's not. And that just personally really gets on my nerves. The Royal Rat Vanguard is going to be next, and he's mainly this far through funny points. He's a giant rat who makes all of the rules, and he has a mohawk. Like, I don't need to say anything else. The Old Iron King is beyond boring. It takes him, like, 7 years to wind up his attacks, and he just leaves his, like, a body part there for a good 2 minutes for you just to be able to smack him. He's really only this far up because he's not as bad as all the other ones so far, and Iron Keep is an all-around good area. Like, his little pit kills more people than he does. Like, the pit is the true boss. Give it a health bar. The top of D tier is going to be the Blue Smelter Demon. And that's mainly because he's a reskin of a pretty good boss. Like, the Smelter Demon on its own is a good fight. But the run-up to him is by far the worst run-up to a boss in Dark Souls 2. I'm tempted to say the whole franchise, and maybe any game that I've ever played. Like, he's a good boss, but laziness is gonna put you down. Okay, so next is C tier, and at the bottom of C tier is gonna be Ava. I like how you genuinely, like, have to explore most of I can never say it right. Ilium Lois? Elelium Lois? I think it's Ilium Lois. So I like how you have to explore the DLC to make her visible for the fight. But the fight itself is kind of frustrating. It's like just about serviceable, but she has a few attacks where she just kind of goes all over the fucking place, or she wants and drifts all around. And she does that thing where hitting her makes your equipment degrade like really fast, and that is also a big annoyance. The Royal Rat Authority, Crackhead Sif, who voms on the floor. Honestly, I don't hate this boss, and I would put it higher if it wasn't for those 4 goddamn rats. Like, there was no need for them, those little rats. He's fine on his own, maybe a bit on the easier side, but he's fine on his own. There's just no need for those 4 rats. The Twin Dragon Rider is going to be next, and the only thing going for him, really, is that you can make one break the tower the other's on. Apart from that, they're really boring. Like, they have abysmally low health, especially for the point in the game you fight them and the damage you're more than likely going to be doing. And, again, it's just a reskin of a previous boss. Not even a reskin, it is a previous boss with another one with him. Okay, and next is Covetous Demon. Personally, if it was just me ranking it on my own, and I wasn't having, like, the opinions of my friends in there, I would have put him higher, because I love him. He's a shit fight, like, don't get me wrong, but he, in and of himself, is hilarious to me. I love him. He's so funny to me. And he is pretty much only up here because funny points, and the fight's pretty shit, but it's not offensive like the other ones in D tier, in my opinion anyway. But it's mainly the funny points. The Dukes de Freya is next, and that boss is like, okay. I like the 2 heads concept, and I think from memory, the hitboxes are pretty good for this fight. But I fucking hate the laser move and the little spiders around the area. Like, I just hate the laser move with a passion. I don't think it should have it. It makes no sense. And the little spiders are just annoying. There's just no need for them. You've dealt with little spiders all around. I thought it would be fine dealing with them in the spiderweb area before. Don't put them in the actual boss arena. Just leave me alone. And next on the list is going to be the Guardian Dragon, and the biggest thing he has going for him is his arena. That Birdcage arena is fucking beautiful. It is a stunning, stunning arena. But he's really easy, especially for the point in the game that he's in. And I think he has a very similar, or maybe the same moveset, except he's obviously not as big as the Ancient Dragon, but they do have a very similar move pool, I believe, except Guardian Dragon can hang off the edges of the cage. And last at the top of C tier is going to be the Last Giant. Again, C is kind of like the serviceable tier. He is a serviceable tutorial boss. I like his design, like his actual look. I think he does look quite cool. And I like that he rips his own arm off. He's, like, really dedicated to the bit. But as a fight, he's just not very interesting. I can, like, vividly remember all of the other Souls games, like, tutorial bosses. And they all have something unique or cool going for them. Like, the Vanguard, the Asylum Demon, and Udix Gundyr, and Cleric Beast. But Last Giant just kind of gets lost. Like, again, he's not that interesting, and as far as like tutorial Souls bosses go, he definitely misses the mark in regards to that. Okay, so we're adding an extra tier here. We've added a in-between tier for B and C, and this is the B- tier. They're not as bad as the C tier bosses, but they don't quite have that special sauce to properly be in V, so it's minus B, minus B, it's B minus VV. And starting us off is going to be the Giant Lord. He's mostly the same as his future counterpart, but he has a little bit more to him, mainly like the sword, and I like the concept of fighting a stronger version of him in the past, and then him recognizing you in the future, and you don't know that until you've gotten towards like endgame. I think that is a really cool idea. And next is going to be the Demon of Song. Again, ideally, I would have liked to put him higher. I think his design is super unique, and his gimmick isn't terrible for a one-time fight. And this was pointed out to me by my friend, mainly, but it's the Shrine of Amana that really holds him back. It's like the worst area in the main game of Dark Souls 2. Does a number on him in the tier list. Scorpioness Najka in herself is pretty average, but what bumps her up for me is the side quest with Man Scorpion Tark. Again, it's super unique. You get a fight with probably the most unique NPC Phantom in the whole series, and I really wish they added the cut content with cutscenes of him and her like fighting each other, and they made it a bit more about their relationship if you partake in the quest. But like I say, she herself is okay. She's nothing impressive, but she's not a bad boss. But the side quest with her significant other really bumps it up for me, makes it a lot more interesting. The next boss is the Flexile Sentry. It's got a cool design and theme. I really like the theme for this boss, but what really holds it back, and what is a massive shame, is they didn't go far enough with the water filling the boat concept. Now, it probably would have just slowed down your movement, but it would be cool if it did something else with it. I just feel like they could have taken the concept a lot further than they did. And again, the water fills up so slowly, it's realistically not going to be an issue unless you are actively trying to make it an issue. Mytha, she stands out a lot for a Souls game. I get obviously the Medusa archetype isn't new, but for Souls specifically, she does stand out quite a bit, and I do appreciate that. But the gimmick of a poison arena and having to drain the poison through burning a windmill is fucking horrible. I still do want to know how any rational human being is supposed to connect the dots between windmill, burning a metal windmill, and draining poison. And at the top of B- is Nishandra. She's mainly this far up through her lore. As a fight, I do think she's really average and by far the worst final quote-unquote boss in a Souls game. But her connection to Manus, the whole backstory around her and Vendrick's relationship, and her whole making you go ahead and take care of all the challenges and things that Vendrick put in her way so she can try and get the Throne of One at the last minute, I do think is a clever little twist. And next up is going to be the B tier, and at the bottom of the B tier is the Dragon Rider. And like the Twin Dragon Rider, his biggest crime is just that he's quite boring. I do like that if you leave the floor open, you can make him fall and cheese it in like 2 seconds. I do like you have multiple approaches to what arena you fight on, basically. But as a basic starting game boss, as one of the first, like realistically the first 3 bosses you're going to be fighting, I do think he is quite good, and he is like serviceable enough for that role. If he was later on in the game, he would definitely be further down, but because he is so early on, he does help you a lot to get to grips with the basics of the game, I suppose, and that is why he's this far up. Next is the Rotten, and the Rotten is a boss that I think is generally fine. There's nothing really amazing or super stand out, But he's pretty solid. I don't like his grab move. I don't like his grab move at all. But he in and of himself is okay. And next up's going to be the Ruined Sentinels. I'm not a big fan of the run-up. I do think that that is pretty unengaging, especially with the amount of enemies they just put in the first couple of corridors. That does really get on my nerves. But I do really like that it gives you time to fully get to grips with the moveset of just one before you have to try and fight the other two. I do agree that the platform is probably a little bit too small, but I do think on the whole that this is a pretty well designed fight. Next is going to be the Executioner's Chariot, and I do think this has a good one-off gimmick of mainly being the arena and the use of normal enemies before you can try and destroy the chariot. And I like that you can choose whether or not to engage with the chariot. You can either break it so it falls off into the pit and the boss fight just ends, or you fight the actual horse. So I like that you have the freedom to choose in that regard. Next is going to be the Throne Watcher and Defender, and they're fine, they're pretty inoffensive, but I do feel like you need something with these types of fights. You need something like the Pillars to break aggro, because like I said in my Dark Souls 2 analysis, they want to be Ornstein and Smough. That's what they want to be. They want this to be the equivalent of Ornstein and Smough. But I feel like you do need some sort of environmental assistance to help break up the aggro, because sometimes, now it's not often that it happens, but it does happen. If they're too close, they'll just both spam attacks together, and you'll have to either wait ages until you can get 1 or 2 hits in, or they will just keep spamming attacks, you know, together real close, and you'll just die. And I think that is bad design. I don't like that. It's not fun when that happens. Aldi is kind of like Nishandra in the sense that he's mainly up here for his lore and his character. His theme is absolutely fantastic. I think it's probably the best piece of music in the game. And I do think his fight is better than Nishandra's, but not by, like, a ton. So that is why he is here. And what a coincidence, Vendrick is right here next to his brother. The same thing I said about Aldi can really be applied to him, although I do think his fight is a little bit better. I like how you can modify the difficulty with the amount of giant souls you've collected, but the fight itself, it's still not that interesting. It's a giant hollow realistically, but the theme, the lore, being able to go into the, you know, the past at his arena and speak to him before he hollowed, it's mainly all his lore and backstory that makes this, I think, a good fight. But as an actual fight, just in and of itself, you know, it's just a big boy with a sword who's gone hollow. He can't really do too much. So it's mainly that backing him up. And at the top of B tier is going to be the Old Dragon Slayer. I think he is really solid, but I can't put him higher than B, mostly for him being, you know, just Ornstein ported over, but with a few changes, and that's both a strength and a weakness to me, because you do have those changes where he gets a few AoE moves, kind of like Smough. I think he does get a couple of Smough's moves, or is it just Super Ornstein? I'm not 100% sure. But he has big AoE like butt bouncers and big spell moves that he can do, which are similar to those two. But the fact that it is just Ornstein with a few differences like Dark instead of Lightning and a couple extra moves, that does mean to me I can't put him any higher than this, so he is going to be at the top of B. And next we have the A tier, and the Pursuer just sneaks into A tier, and I think that is, again, kind of like the Dragon Rider, but less because he is more unique than him. He gets into A tier because of his placement in the game. He is a pretty early game boss, and I think for an early game boss, he is an amazing fight. You can cheese him, at least that does take a little bit of effort into setting up, and he can destroy them himself, so it's not just like a instant gratification, like, oh, I just killed this guy in one hit. And just to clarify, because I feel like it needs to be said with the Pursuer, I'm only judging him as a boss specifically. I'm not judging any time you see him in the world after his boss fight with the full health bar of him, as you know, like every other boss has, because that wouldn't really be fair on any of the other bosses, and it would make it too confusing to rank, in my opinion. So I'm just judging it solely on that. Now, I did really want to put Sin higher, because I really, really love how he genuinely mixes up his playstyle, and I think it's probably the most noticeable boss that his playstyles mixed up on, depending on if you have summons or not. Like I said in my video, if you've got summons with you, he does tend to fly around a lot more, and he's a lot more, I guess the word would be dodgy. Like, he does fly away from you a lot more and uses a lot more projectile attacks and dips and dives away from you. But if you're on your own, he still does fly around still, but he generally will stick to physical swipes and close fire breath attacks. But the one thing that really knocks Sin down is how quickly he breaks your equipment. And granted, if you've got 3 or 4 repair powders, like, that will resolve the issue. But that's per fight. And granted, repair powders aren't hard to come by, but it's not the fact that, you know, they're not hard to come by, it's the fact that it's frustrating, and more frustrating than it needed to be. I think if he broke equipment slower, it would be a lot less egregious. I still think that mechanic still can work, but it's too quick for me, and it's too annoying. Like, your equipment is gonna break, as a guarantee. Next is gonna be the Smelter Demon. I do really like this boss, especially for the point he's in the game. He's kind of topped off a really good area, with the exception of a couple of the placements for the Elon Knights. But he in and of himself is a good fight. His music, I really like. The only thing I can really say about the Smelter Demon I'm not a fan of, like, I love his like, attack patterns. I think they're fast, but also able to be read if you're paying attention quite easily. So you've got a good balance of difficulty there. Like I say, the only thing that really gets on my nerves with Smelter Demon, and obviously this applies to the blue one as well, is the ticking damage that he does when you're near him. I'm just personally not a big fan of that mechanic. I'm glad it was only used for these two, because I feel like if it was used any more than that, I would be a lot more annoyed at it. But right now it's just inconvenient, so it's a small criticism, granted, but that's what's stopping him getting any further in the tier. And next is going to be Alana, the Squalid Queen. I'm not sure what I can really say about Alana, because she is basically just a better Nashandra. Like, they're both these big skeletal ladies with, who relies mainly on, like, darkness spells. But the one thing that sort of sets Alana apart is I think she's got more interest, like, in a more interesting moveset, and her attacks are a little bit more varied. She's got a good amount of, like, physical swipes, and she can switch into, like, spell casting and physical swipes pretty easily, unlike Nashandra, who's a lot more slow, I feel. But the thing that really sets Alana apart, and what I really enjoy about the fight, is the, I guess, RNG element of her summons. Like, she can either summon, I think it's 3 pigs, 3 skeletons, or Velstadt. And I really, really like that. Like I said in my video, if she summons Velstadt, it is really hard. It does turn into, like, a hard gank fight, but it's a good fight. Like, it's not unfair, in my opinion, because she's less aggressive, I believe. Or it's either she's less aggressive or she does less damage. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's balanced well. And next is going to be the Looking Glass Knight. The arena is absolutely stunning. It is beautiful. I love the concept of the whole Mirror Knight coming in to help him. I think that's a really nice little twist to the fight. And I like that his shield actually matters. Like, a lot of bosses that have shields, it'll still count for a lot of damage even if you hit him with a shield. Whereas with this guy, the Looking Glass Knight, it will just bounce right off. And that's something I really do appreciate, that the shield matters and your positioning matters when you hit him. He's got a good range of... He does obviously rely mainly on physical attacks, but he's also got a good couple amount of projectiles that can mix you up, which I appreciate. But he is just missing that special extra something for me to put him in S. I guess it's because it's never happened to me personally, but if you get someone who's specifically like made a build for being summoned for this fight, and like they just kind of botted the game. That can be really frustrating to get through if you're unlucky. Like I say, it's never happened to me, but I do need to take that into account for the rankings. Sometimes with this boss, your enjoyment of it can heavily depend on if you get a sweaty human player. And next is going to be the Lost Sinner. I really like the Lost Sinner. She was actually very, very close to being an S. But the main thing that holds the Lost Sinner back for me is the lighting. And by that I mean, you can make the fight a lot worse for yourself by turning the lights on. I genuinely believe this fight is a lot better and a lot more interesting if you do not turn the lights on. I personally always fight the Lost Sinner in the dark. I think that is the way the boss should be experienced, and you get like the full effect of the fight. But because you know, so you can turn the lights on and make her a lot, in my opinion, a lot weaker in that regard, I can't put her any higher than this place in A. Which is still good. It's like the second best tier to be in. But I feel like if they went further with the concept of fighting her in the darkness, she could be higher. Next is going to be Velstalt. I don't have that much to say about Velstalt. He's just a solid, good, enjoyable fight. It's just a guy with a big hammer. He's going to bonk you. He has some spells he can buff himself with. And I do like that he buffs himself like halfway through the fight rather than him getting another health bar. I like that it's just included in the fight. The only thing I'm not really a huge fan of with Velstalt is it's a little jumpy back. I don't know what to call it, but it'll hop back a little bit, and it doesn't look like an attack, it just looks like a dodge. But the hammer still has like an active hitbox, so he can dodge, and you'll still get hit for a pretty chunky bit of damage with his hammer, and it feels quite janky. And at the top of A tier is going to be the old Ivory King. He was really, really close to getting in S. His whole backstory with Alsana, him being one of the very few, like, just, by all accounts, generally benevolent rulers in the Soul series, also makes him pretty unique. And the fight itself against him is just a solid, fun fight. The one thing that holds him back is all the corrupted knights that come out, because if you've got all the knights with you, that it's kind of like your own little army, and in that sense that's fun. You get to fight the corrupted knights with your remaining uncorrupted knights before he comes out. But if you try to fight him without the knights, it's ganked to the extreme, and it's horrible and not fun, and I hate it. So because you can just make the fight that little bit more infuriating, he just misses the mark on S. But he lands on the top of A, which is definitely nothing to sneeze at. It's a very good boss. And finally, we have our S tier. And at the bottom of S tier is going to be Dark Lurker. Dark Lurker's fantastic. He is the best example of technically a gang fight in Dark Souls 2, maybe even the whole Souls series. I'm not 100% sure. Definitely in Dark Souls 2. His design is simple but like cool, a little bit edgy, but I like it. And he has a really, really good mix of well-telegraphed projectile moves and physical swipes. And it makes the second phase harder, but it's still fair, because he clones himself, yes, and you can, obviously you're fighting two of a very difficult boss, so that's going to make it even more difficult. But it doesn't count as a separate health bar, and he only goes into it when he's on half health, which I think balances it out and makes it a very fair challenge. I just simply like the other two bosses more than Dark Lurker is the only reason why he's not up higher. Just me and my friends prefer these two bosses to Dark Lurker. He's definitely the best boss in the base game, no question. But these other two just have something a little bit more special. And the second boss that's in S tier, but it's going to be the Fume Knight. The Fume Knight is my personal favourite boss in Dark Souls 2, but we came to the agreement that the boss coming up is just a tad bit better objectively than he is. The Fume Knight's amazing. I love him being... I can't remember if he's the brother of Felstat or just he's the right hand. He's the right hand of King Vendrick either way. But him having a disagreement with Vendrick, losing in a duel. I'm not sure if it's fully confirmed, but I believe it's just he knows that Nashandra's not good, and the other two refuse to believe it at the start. He leaves. He finds the Iron Tower. I can't remember what it's called. Is it the Broom Tower? I think it's the Broom Tower. And he finds the Lonely One, the Bride of Ash, and he kind of sees himself in her a little bit, or understands her plight, and he accepts her power and becomes the Fume Knight. Again, very, very good, well-telegraphed moves. He's very fast, especially with his size. It's fair that he powers himself up in his second phase when he's at half health. He's got a good range of... Like Dark Lurker, he more so focuses on physical than projectile, unlike Dark Lurker, who's the latter. But he does have a good couple of projectiles in his second phase to keep you on your toes and make the fight that little bit more challenging. The only thing that really holds him back from being the best boss is sometimes that flame on his greatsword can be a little bit wonky in terms of its hitboxes. I've personally never experienced it really, but I've seen it happen. And if you don't have the 4 shards to get rid of the things that will heal him, that can make the fight really frustrating. I feel like that doesn't take away from the fight as much as it does, say, the old Ivory King with his gimmick, for example. So that is why he just misses the top spot, but he's getting the silver medal, being the second best boss. That's definitely nothing to scoff at. He's a fantastic fight. And at number 1, the best boss in Dark Souls 2, in me and my friend's opinion, Sir Alon. I'm not sure really what else needs to be said. It's Sir Alon. Just a good one-on-one with a swordsman. Quintessential Dark Souls, really. Probably the fastest. He's probably the fastest DLC knight-type boss. But again, everything's it'll definitely take you a few tries to get the movement down. But once it does, it's very flowing. It kind of feels like say a Dark Souls 3 boss in that respect, where you have that more of a focus on like the roll, the counter, and like getting into that pattern, that swing. And once you get into that pattern and you recognize what movements correlate to what attack, it just all clicks. And even if you don't, and like I say, it'd take you a lot of tries to get it down, it just makes for a fantastic fight. The arena's gorgeous, the music's very intense. He's a quite intimidating character, like, he's bowing before you actually encounter him. He needs that few seconds to stand up, and then the fight properly begins, which might make some people underestimate him on like the first go. And if he gets you with that grab, you're in trouble. That powered up Alon is something to worry about for sure. And that is the tier list. Sir Alon standing at the top as the best boss in Dark Souls 2. And with that, that's going to end the video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my friends who helped me organize this tier list and help me make it. And yeah, I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.